This podcast is brought to you by HorrorMetalSounds.com.
The Thrashcast was created by Kenneth Gallant, Billy Kay, and Jim Harrison.
Welcome, everyone, to our new podcast. We're calling it the Thrashcast. We're three guys who love talking all things thrash metal. Given our ages, all three of us grew up in, I guess, what we'll call the golden era of thrash metal through the 80s, but we also closely followed all the newer generations of thrash bands. We'll do a formal introduction in a moment, but just start with a bit of a high-level background. So Jim, Ken, and my name's Billy. We work together over at the Metal Pit website, and we sort of got into a routine doing some thrash metal podcasts together. And so the reason why we're here on this new website, we enjoyed working together and wanted to take it one step further and create a dedicated thrash metal podcast. So probably now is a good time, I think, to introduce ourselves, let everyone get to know us a little better. Ken, do you want to sort of kick off and give a bit of a bio for everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Ken Gallant. I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
So Horror Metal Sounds is my website. So what I'm doing is my site's basically devoted to horror and metal, the two worlds which I closely love and associate growing up with. So I thought that would be a great thing to do. I started this site like about 11 years ago. So it's been quite a while. It actually started as a column on another site that's no longer active. So I worked there. And then basically, a long story short, I got into a little bit of a tiff with the editor of that site. So I decided to basically just strike out on my own and do my own thing. So yeah, Horror Metal Sounds has been around for 11 years. We've been covering horror, metal, and we're still going strong. We're now in year number 11. And yeah, this is great with this new venture. I love it. Always talking thrash is a big thing for me.
Cool. And I'm guessing you like thrash.
Absolutely. You betcha. Grew up with that right from the beginning. So
Cool. Jim, how about you?
Yeah, I'm Jim Harrison. I'm from the East Coast here in Nova Scotia, Canada. And what's great about it is, I'm the same age as you guys, 53 years old. So grew up right at the birth of thrash. One of my favorite sub-metal genres for sure, that and death metal. And the chance to talk about thrash continuously is it's really, really awesome. Fell in love with it in the early 80s and haven't looked back. And I've been working with the Metal Pit as a writer, doing lots of album reviews and podcasts and stuff. But this is going to be great to really just kind of hone in on my thrash addiction. So
That's a good addiction to have.
absolutely.
All right, cool. So I introduced myself earlier. My name's Billy. And little Jim, with you giving us your age, I might be the young one in the group. But maybe barely by a year.
I think so.
But I think all three of us are sort of here in Canada, and so currently living in Canada, although I did spend much of the past decade living in the States, Philadelphia, so that's another great heavy metal city. I got into metal probably when I was like 12 or 13. I guess I'll use the term metal kind of loosely, metal, hard rock, whatever I can get my hands on that was faster than the pop music. Fast forward today, I'd say my favorite metal genres are thrash, so I'm in the right place here, but also a big fan of death metal. I actually like all forms of metal. with the exception of black metal. So sorry, black metal fans, just something I've never been able to break through. A little bit more about me. I have a passion for live heavy metal. As much as I love listening to it, listening to it live is even better. I tend to sort of go to at least one big Euro metal fest a year, a couple of local shows a month, and then multiple festivals in the North American area. So yeah, big fan of that. In terms of physical media, I think a lot of us are the same. I need to have that physical copy so you can see behind me. Or beside me, I've got lots of CDs and vinyl. Not a big digital guy. And then lastly, as Jim mentioned, I also contribute album and concert reviews, and I've been doing a few interviews over at the metalpit.com as well. So yeah, that's a little bit more about the three of us. So then let's move into the logistics of the new Thrashcast here. So our plan is to do this weekly. Now I'm sure life will get in the way, so there may be I can't guarantee it's going to be every single week. In terms of focus, as we've been talking about, definitely thrash metal is the focus, but I guess we'll keep it open. Could jump into other styles from time to time. And then most importantly, where you can find the podcast. So Ken talked about it already. We're going to house it on his website. So www.horrormetalsounds.com. And then, of course, the YouTube page. Where you'll be able to get a copy of the videos. Horror Metal Sounds at keng.2864. Ken, did I get all that right?
You did, sir. You did just
All right.
fine.
All right, cool. And I know you talked a bit about the site. You've probably covered it, but anything else you'd want to add here?
No, just we're very excited about getting this going. You'll see us on promoting very, very soon. We have a logo that we designed for it, so it's going to be kick-ass. We'll have T-shirts.
Oh yeah.
We'll be having T-shirts for it because I had that in mind. Since I'm all about, like, with my site, I like to do the branding. So we branded Horror Metal Sounds in a kind of a unique way because I'm a visual person. I'm also like a graphic artist. I mean, I went to art school, so I've always had that in mind.
Cool. And then let's hope those T-shirt sizes are size inclusive. I don't wear a small or a medium, by the way. And no European sizes. I've been burned on that at the Euro festivals.
Yeah.
An extra large is like our medium here. So
Fair enough, sir.
All right, cool. Today's topic, why are we here? So we're going to talk about the legendary German thrash metal band Kreator. We're going to do a deep dive on the influential Pleasure to Kill album. That was 1986 it came out. Do I have that right, guys? 1986?
Yep.
You got it.
And then after we do a deep dive on the album, we're going to reveal a bit of a painful task we had ranking the Kreator discography. So definitely some interesting albums in there, but we'll save that. Okay. Before we do the deep dive into the Kreator discussion, one of the things we wanted to do on the podcast is just kind of share an album that we're spinning and or a piece of like thrash metal news that caught our attention. Sure, some of you may already be aware of that, but if we could share some news to folks, I think that's a good thing. Get the word out. So Ken, do you want to start this segment?
Yeah, sure. So recently I've been listening to the new Atrophy album, which the band has returned back to a new album for the first time in like a long time. Yeah. So I did interview Brian for my site. So that was a really good interview. It's a great album. It's a return to form album. Lots of heavy riffs in it. I love the lyrics. Lyrical content is fantastic. And yeah, I'm hoping everyone picks this album up when I think it's already out now, if I have that right.
No, I think probably
this week.
This week?
Okay.
Yeah.
Why do I
Yeah,
think the 18th? Is that right? Or is that a
Yeah.
Friday?
15th is a Friday, isn't it?
Oh, maybe
What
it's the 15th then. Okay.
Yeah, okay, Friday. Yeah, so yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think everyone should go out and pick that album up. If you like classic thrash, and if you remember these guys back from the '80s, they just kind of pick up where they left off, and it's fantastic. So that's my pick for current spinning metal album. I did want to
Okay.
bring up a couple of quick news
Yeah. Go
stories.
ahead.
Yeah, so there is a new Darkness album coming out. If anyone remembers Darkness, they're kind of one of the more they're German thrash, so it kind of fits well with our topic tonight. They've, maybe they're like a lower tier thrash band, but I've always liked their style. They have an album coming out on April 26th on, I believe it's Massacre Records, and the new album is actually called Blood on Canvas. So I'm looking forward to that album. They've been around. They've reformed in 2015. So they had two albums previously to this. So they would have had the Gasoline Solution, and then there was the one they did with First Class Violence in 2018. So they're continuing on. New vocalists. There are new members in the band. The only returning members is the drummer and guitarist from back like mid '80s. So that's an album that I'm looking forward to.
I can't say I'm familiar with that band. Do you know them, Jim, or is it just me?
No, I'm not. I'm not totally familiar with them either. No.
Okay. All
Okay.
right. Yeah, I looked them up. They had three albums previously. They started out 87, 88, and 89, and then they called it quits, like as most thrash bands of that era, like in the early 90s, they disappeared and then returned. But definitely check them out. The first album's really good.
Okay. Cool. Well, Jim, we got some homework already.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, Jim, do you want to take over?
So a really, really anticipated release coming up with Hyrax returning. I mean, they have a new single out that was, I think, released about a month ago, Drill Into the Brain. So, I mean, it just sounds like classic Hyrax. And I mean, there's all kinds of interviews that Katon's been doing. And on top of that, I think they just opened for Prong and Voivod in California the week just last night. So that's pretty cool. And their new album, Faster Than Death, is coming out. I don't think there's a release date yet on that, but I mean, I've been a fan since Raging Violence, and then they obviously kind of, they had 85, 86, then kind of disbanded, got back together in 04, and then kind of, and Katon's been working I think he's been working in a record store. And then I saw an interview with him where he was saying him and his wife were just going through the stacks and stacks of fan mail that he still gets, that they just decided, you know what, we need to bring this to the masses again. So that'll be a great release and something definitely to look forward to. I can't wait.
Cool.
Yeah. Any sense, Jim, like how much of the old band is back, or?
I couldn't find any information. I know, I think there's one other member, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
The interviews have just been kind of him at a few, like they've been playing live over the past month, a couple shows here and there. And like I say, it was really cool because following him on Instagram and on YouTube and Facebook, he's always like they got asked to do the Voivod show, which was a pretty big deal for them. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure on the other members yet.
Okay. All right. That should be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. To be honest, I wasn't aware of that one either. So there you go. I'm learning a lot.
And that's all I've got. That's all I've got for new news.
Okay. No, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
So on my end, I got a piece of news, and I have something I've been spinning. So just showing this album here. Picked up a recent reissue, Infernal Majesty, None Shall Defy, released in 1987. I don't know if I mentioned it, but Canadian thrash band. Definitely rooted in thrash metal. As I've been spinning it this week, it still holds up well here in 2024. So I think that says something right there. It's actually if I compare it to stuff at the time, like it's evil sounding, kind of in the vein of like a Slayer or Possessed. Musicianship is pretty strong. Had some early technical, maybe progressive elements. Like the bass is very upfront in the mix, like a technical band, and some of the the time changes are a little different than you'd expect. There's some slow intros, slow endings, so a pretty cool thing. The production's pretty raw, but I guess 1987 and a small Canadian band with very little dollars to record. So keep that in mind, but still think it's a very strong album. Like it might very well be like a bit of a cult album. It seems quite popular. Jim, Ken, you guys like this album as well?
Oh yeah, I had this album. This album
Yeah.
is really good. I thought they were from Quebec. My
I thought it was Vancouver.
Vancouver. Okay, I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I for some reason I had Montreal in my mind, but it could, yeah, you could
Yeah.
very well be Vancouver. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's Vancouver. But then in terms of new piece, speaking of Quebec, so one of my favorite bands and a band I grew up with in the well, I started buying their demos probably in the later 80s, seeing them live in Montreal. But the band Canadian technical thrash metal, Oblivion. And I guess note the spelling, it's EON. So it's a bit unique, but like I said, really technical thrash metal. This particular album, they were definitely well ahead of the group in terms of technicality and just really good songwriting. It got like rave reviews all over the world, really. I remember buying the magazines back in like 88, 89 and reviewing the demo, which has all these songs. And the thing was getting like 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5 everywhere. But, as we know, sometimes bands just don't, they can't break out for whatever reason. But the big news related to this, if you had these things on vinyl, they were going for 100, $200 each. This one's actually an original copy that I bought back in the day. But Flogger Records out of Greece, who do great reissues, have just reissued the whole catalog. And so that's already out there. Like I've seen them here in Canada. So you could definitely find them. You got this album From This Day Forward, 1990, really more progressive thrash. I'll just sort of point to this other classic, Nemesis. This was a little heavier, maybe sort of verging on death metal, but still thrash, and definitely more technical than the other two. They changed their style, changed the singer, so they were a little different. Cyber Void from 1995, and then Carnivore Mother Mouth from 1999. So again, you can get all those on vinyl. But the other surprise is, I don't know if it was meant to happen at the same time, but Awakening Records, who do awesome CD reissues with all the stories and great notes and interviews with the band, are reissuing the whole catalog on CD. They're not out just yet. If you look at Awakening Records, they keep saying coming soon in 2024. But there's lots of bonus material that's not on the vinyl. So I can't wait to get my hands on those. I have them on CD, but I don't have those damn bonus tracks. So again, I can't recommend. Unfortunately, they're probably not. As they're definitely not as well known as they should be. But I can't recommend enough From This Day Forward and Nemesis. Just two classic albums that's got to be heard. So yeah, that's what I had for our news segment. Anything else you guys want to share? Or?
Billy, it was funny because you had brought that up on one of our past podcasts, and I've been listening to them digitally. And yeah, they're wicked band. And I mean, I wasn't familiar with them at first. I think as soon as I kind of checked out their logo and saw the album covers, I do remember them. But man, you're right, and I'm watching diligently for the re-releases. That's going to be cool.
Yeah, no, that'll be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I wish I still had it, but like I remember as a young kid in Montreal, well before the internet, obviously we're showing our age, but actually writing to the band and
Yeah.
asking for like a demo
Cool.
copy.
Nice.
Then they sent me, snail mail a demo copy on CD.
Nice.
And so yeah, it's a pretty cool experience. It was a local, pretty much a local band for me, so that might be why I'm so passionate about them.
Hey,
Uh,
tape trading. You're like the Lars of the North.
Yeah.
yeah, there you go. Uh, I don't think I went out against Napster though.
No, no, no.
Actually, I never used Napster because at the end of the day, I had to have the physical copy. It's the curse that I have,
Same here.
the financial
Yeah.
Yeah.
curse as well. Okay. So yeah, that's a little segment that we'll start off with each show. But let's move into the body of our podcast here. So, Kreator, I think I'll just sort of give a bit of an overview. I mean, not that people don't know Kreator, but there might be some younger fans. So, Kreator are a German band, part of the big four of German Teutonic thrash metal, along with Sodom, Destruction, and Tankard. They first formed in 1982. One thing I didn't know is they went through multiple names. They were at one point called Metal Militia, Tyrant.
Yeah.
I did know about Tormentor,
Yeah.
but then eventually landed on Kreator in 1984, 85. The main guy in Kreator, of course, is Millie Petroza on guitars and vocals. But of course, the drumming god Ventnor,
Mhm.
was with the band most of the time. He stepped out for a brief period, but back in the band. But then the other band members certainly was a bit of a revolving door going on there. Pretty prolific output, I'd say. 15 studio albums, multiple EPs, and I just gave up buying all the live albums because it feels like there's one
Yeah. There's a
every
lot.
year or every 2 years.
Mhm.
This is
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
crazy. First record, of course, Endless Pain in 1985. Latest is Hey Uber Alice. That was in 2022. And then, really Kreator just, I think, definitely of the German Big Four, achieved the most international success. And really, the band's still touring on a regular basis and across the world. I mean, I saw them 3 times last year. I didn't have to go
Cool.
that far out of the way to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, the band's still going strong. Anything I missed, guys, that you'd add in there?
No, it was good. I will say that don't forget they were a trio. They weren't actually a four
Yes.
piece when they started out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were technically a trio, and even though the fourth member that's actually credited on the album for Pleasure to Kill wasn't really in the band. I know he did some work with the guys, but yeah, they were technically a trio for quite a while. So I thought that was an interesting point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the first pressings of Pleasure to Kill had him listed as a
Yeah,
member, and
that's
then they
right.
corrected it. Yeah, as they went on. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
kind of weird. So they were a three-piece for the most part. So that's kind of like more going into destruction territory because they were a
Yeah.
three-piece as well. So
Yeah.
kind of interesting.
Yeah. And Sodom has been a 3-piece a lot of their career.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's funny, like they can get by with like 3 members for each of those bands.
Yeah, I know. And it was interesting. Like just last week, not thrash metal, but I saw the German band Rage, and they're now been going as a 3-piece for a while. Must be something about the German bands. All right.
Never know.
Okay, so then let's just chat a bit about kind of our general thoughts on Kreator and the impact they've had on our own personal metal journey, if you will. Jim, can you share your thoughts on Kreator?
Oh man, I mean, you got the Teutonic Big Four here. So you got Kreator, you've got Sodom, you've got Destruction, you've got Tankard. So I mean, the first time I heard them was probably this album, but the first album I actually purchased was Extreme Aggression, and I mean that's one hell of an album. So I have a lot of like attachment to it. It came out right at the end of the 80s, and it absolutely just kicked ass. So, and then going back and like getting Endless Pain and Terrible Certainty in that, they're a solid, consistent band. What you hear and what you see is what you're going to get. What I like about their last release of Hate Uber Alice and it was one of my top albums. I think it was my third top next to Voivod and Saxon album that of 2022. I like the fact that they tweak their sound a little bit on that. You've got they bring in like a female singer for one of the songs, and there was a little bit of pushback from maybe some hardcore Kreator fans online, but I think overall people like the tweaking change a little bit. And this is what falls into like I remember I've talked about it a lot of times that what I really like about Kreator, they tweak it, but they don't do a 180 change like maybe somebody like Metallica did and really kind of alienated a ton of their fans. These guys don't. And maybe there's a couple albums in there that like renewal's a bit of a change and maybe a little bit of a tough pill to swallow, but I find they're generally pretty consistent, and that's what I like in my thrash metal. I like consistency. Love, like Anthrax is consistent, Slayer, Sodom, Tankard. This is all good, consistent stuff. So,
yeah, no, good point. I mean, the late 90s is definitely an interesting period for Kreator, but we'll get into that when we get to that. I have some pretty strong feelings on that, but Ken, Ken, same question to you.
Yeah, well, like Jim, I would have heard them from Pleasure to Kill, the second album. That's one of the first album I actually heard. So yeah, I've kind of knew about them right from the get-go because they're always written in magazines of the time, and so I knew of them. I always I knew them right from the start, but when I was in high school, I had a bunch of buddies who are like totally into metal, and they were like bringing in vinyl records of Destruction, Eternal Devastation. So that was like, oh, it's so great. And then they were like, hey, how about Kreator? And I'm like, oh, okay. So my buddies were talking about Kreator, so yeah, I started getting into them as well because I thought, well, Destruction, Kreator, like, how could you not? Like these album covers and these bands, like they get you right from the get go, and it's like that cover, like even Endless Pain, like that cover is just, oh, I love that cover. So yeah, that was kind of like my first introduction to Kreator as well. I think we're probably all going to have different opinions about their career. Overall, though, I think their career has been interesting. There's been a lot of ups and downs, and I also feel like the more modern approach to Kreator very much is owed to the experimentation that they did make in the mid '90s, because a lot of that melody, or at least some of the melody that they were introducing some of those albums, it really creeps into the modern sound, and they're not as aggressive and as angry as they were. So I kind of like the balance with this band, and I'm sure we'll talk more about the later period Kreator, but every album is different, but every album is still consistent in a lot of ways.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting point. I definitely find the last sort of 4 or 5 albums definitely have a little bit more melodic, but that's interesting. I never connected it to that messy 90s period, but I can see what you're saying. No, I can see that.
Just the experimentation, like Millie's.
Yeah.
His willingness to experiment, like to leave the thrash formula and try something else. I mean, you have Endorama. I mean, that's as far away from a thrash album as you can imagine. But what I'm saying is, like, elements of Endorama, some of that melody, it creeps into the modern sound. It really you can hear it in the modern sound so much. So I kind of think like, he's as a musician, he's really clever with the style and the sound and pushing it. And I like it because you can't like have every album sound like Endless Pain, because that's gonna bore you to death after a while. you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I got you. No, no, that's well said. No, I like that. Yeah, I guess from my perspective, that same question, 1986 is, had a major influence on my metal journey. And this is really where I kind of discovered Kreator, if I'm remembering right. It was the Pleasure to Kill album. But things like Pleasure to Kill and Slayer's Rain in Blood,
Mhm.
they were just such transitional albums for me because I was listening to, hard rock music, Twisted Sister and
Mhm.
Aerosmith and Van Halen and all great, great music, I guess. But like it was this year where a switch flicked, and I just started moving into the thrash, the heavy stuff, then from thrash to death metal. So yeah, just such an influential album on my metal journey for sure. And yeah, I've been a big fan ever since. Still followed them during those albums that I'm sure we'll talk
Mhm.
about in the '90s. And I still look forward to a new Kreator album. I'll pre-order it to
Yeah.
this day. I think I
Yeah.
mentioned seeing them frequently live. So yeah, no, lots to like here. Okay. And then just we talked about the big four a couple times. Just curious, I wanted to get your take on sort of where you think Kreator sits within the big four. So hopefully I'm not putting you on the spot, but
Yeah.
going to ask you to rank your favorites in the big four, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
So, okay, so I'll go. So, Kreator's number one, Destruction is number two, Sodom number three, and Tankard number four. That's how
Okay.
I've always looked at those four bands.
Okay. Jim?
Yeah. Today,
Yeah,
Kreator,
today I like that.
Sodom. Today, Kreator, Sodom, Destruction, and Tankard. Unfortunately, and Tankard's a great band. I have a lot of their stuff, but it's just probably not as prolific as the other three. But that would be my list.
So, Jim,
Okay.
you think you're putting Destruction that low? You're
Yeah,
not into
number
them,
three.
or
Oh no, I'm
okay?
totally into them. Love their
Oh, okay.
latest
I was just
album.
curious.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, just like today. I just,
Yeah, no,
Sodom had
yeah, no. I'll give you my ranking, and I've got Destruction third as well. I
Oh,
actually love all these four bands. I mean, from
okay.
my perspective, I think from an entire discography career perspective, I think I'll say I prefer the Big Four over the German Big Four over the U.S. Big Four. Now that may be
Okay.
blasphemy. I don't know. But that's how much I like these four bands. But for me, I'm gonna go Sodom by a hair.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah, and then Kreator, then Destruction, and then
Okay.
Tankard. But it's so hard. But yeah, just something about Sodom always connected with me slightly more. Okay, cool. So yeah, so I think we'll dive into the album and specific tracks, or maybe just just before we do that, Ken, you mentioned the artwork, and yeah, the first two albums, just incredible artwork. Who's the artist on that? Any idea?
It's Philip Lavier is the artist. He's an American. I think he's an American artist, and believe it or not, he's did many album covers for bands. He worked with a lot of the Noise Records during that period. He did like stuff for Celtic Frost. He did stuff for Warrant, the German Warrant band. He's did stuff for Death Row, Rage. Yeah, he's Vendetta, Hyrax. He did a Hyrax cover as well.
nice.
Okay.
He's also worked on Minotaur, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with Ex Mortis. They're more of a modern kind of
Yeah.
death thrash band. He's
Heard
did
of
at least three of their album covers.
Okay.
So
Cool.
he has a really extensive resume, and it's funny because all those bands, to some degree, have very similar ideas about, the whole fantasy elements and all the covers that he's done. If you look at them, which I was doing that earlier today, they all have like fantasy elements in it, like beefy kind of Frank Frazetta style warriors, swords, chains, like it's all kind of connected. So it's kind of funny that he found this style. He's very similar to I don't know if you guys know Chris Verwimp. He does a lot of death and thrash metal album covers. Very similar style, but yeah, it's just funny that he's carved out a really good career with the German scene, with all those German bands.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I mean I mean, I love all the artwork, but
Mm.
I tend to not be super knowledgeable on the artist. But I know you would know that, so.
Yeah. I've connected with him on Facebook. He's actually a really nice guy, and
Oh, okay.
I've had a couple chats with him about his career and the stuff he's done. Yeah, he's an interesting fellow. He still works. Like he's like in his 60s now, but he's still actively working on metal and stuff. So
Okay,
it's all good.
cool, cool. All right, so Pleasure to Kill. Let's tackle the individual tracks here. 9 tracks in total. One's an instrumental, and let's start there. First track, Wire of the Damned. Ken, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, and we've been saying this forever. On every time we get together on a podcast, it's like, oh, this is a typical thrash album with you get like this epic opening, instrumental opening, which is kind of cool. I
Yeah.
like the opening. It's very movie soundtrackish to me. It's got that. I'm almost like thinking about these really cheesy like Beastmaster and those kind of 80s movies. I can see that song coming up right away. And then yeah, it's a great introduction, and then you get right into the first song. So I love it. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, no, for sure. Jim?
Yeah, it's I mean it's wicked. It's got that picks up, and it just sets this album up. And I love these old school thrash records where they usually start off with one. They're just kind of teeing it up for you. And I mean, and then you're heading into track 2, which is just a total face melter. But yeah, I love it as well too. And I think there's some kind of crow effects in there that sound
Yeah,
pretty
yes.
gnarly. I really like that. It kind of, it falls right into thrash and death. Some of the, it's just wicked. That's the tease it up for you.
Yeah, yeah. You hear the wind kind of in the middle. You can hear
Yeah,
the wind blowing, and then the birds come in, and then it kind of breaks into a pretty melodic guitar passage.
yeah.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I think you guys said it all. Like, I do find it a bit interesting though, because like a lot of the albums where we talked about it, they were probably definitely much later
Mhm.
than this album came out. And this thing is just like, tracks 2 to 9 are just like face melters, right? Like,
Yep.
Yeah.
like most of the other albums, there are some other like soft points and some counterbalances, but this thing just kind of
Yeah.
stands out, right? Like, I don't remember my first impression of when I heard it the first time, but it always kind of makes me smile when I think about, some kids got this, buys it for the first time. Look at this album cover. Whoa, this thing's called Pleasure to Kill. And then it's like soft like guitar. It's like, what the hell's going on here? But you find out pretty quick, like a minute and a half, what this album's about.
Yeah.
But yeah, so speaking of face melting, Ripping Corpse,
Mhm.
track number
Oh,
2. Jim, over to you.
I mean, this is the classic old school thrash classic. I love it. And it has kind of a Venom meets Slayer. And this whole album is kind of like that. It's kind of like really, early Venom meets kind of really early Slayer. But it's so fast. And I've got written down in my notes like just an absolute drum explosion. It's just it just grabs you by the throat and doesn't let go. And I like the fact that it teased this song up, and then, and you hit it on the head when you said, like, you imagine some kid coming home with, like, this on cassette or on album, which would have been on vinyl, and like some mother seeing it and like, what the hell is this called? Pleasure to Kill. But then the kid putting it on, and then, like you say, starts off with this kind of melodic intro, like, the heck is this? And then boom, then you've been kicked right in the what. So, it just sets it totally, totally up. I love the song.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I think it's great. Like for me, it's just like raw aggression. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
relentless. A lot of the songs and the leads are a bit of like chaotic, like it's pretty crazy, but it all works. I think even Millie, right? Like vocals on a lot of this albums, like he's sort of entering into, I mean, this is, precedes some of that, but there's some early like death and black metal type
Yeah.
screams and type vocals. I mean, I'm sure he was influenced partly by Celtic Frost, around this period and with their previous Endless Pain. But, and again, like these guitar leads, they're just blistering all over the place.
Yeah.
Like Jim, you mentioned the drumming, it just never lets up. Like it's as fast as any of the big four were doing, as far as I'm concerned at this time, the US big four. So yeah, just a perfect blueprint for brutal thrash, right? Not melodic thrash, but brutal thrash. So yeah, great track. And then Ken, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's pretty much like a proto death sound. I mean, I was
Yeah.
reading a lot of people were considering them to be almost like the place where maybe it sort of starts to become death metal. It's not,
Yeah.
but I mean, just the nasty approach. And then this song in particular, like the lyrics are really nasty. Like the things he's saying in it, when you think about it, like this dark figure coming from the east. Now, whoever that could be, it could be anyone, with an axe, with the weapons, and just laying waste to people. Because he does state in this, like you die by the blade. You wait the axe in your back. The dying, eating the heart of your wife, killing children. Like that's just some nasty stuff when you think about it.
Yeah.
But it goes with the territory, right? Like the guy, he has an attitude. And I also what I find funny for me is that he I love his singing, but you can tell at times he's just trying to get the words out. So there's no like really like synchronicity with the music. It's just I'm spinning them out. So it's great. So it's like it's unheard of for thrash bands because the Americans would never ever have this kind of style of thrash. Because I think in like if you look at Megadeth and Metallica, both vocalists very much you know that they're singing and they pride themselves on the singing. Millie just like I don't care. I'm just going to sit up here. I'm just going to spit it out. It's insane. It's just absolutely insane. But that's what makes it so
Unique.
like hair raising to some degree because it's like wow, I don't think any of the American bands could ever play that kind of style. Never ever.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Okay, third track, Death is Your Savior. I have a feeling we're going to be talking more of the same. But Ken, over to you.
Yeah, this song will just pummel you. Like it's just vicious. And like lyrics wise, again, like he just spits it all out and like themes of power, there's themes of control, the idea of the destructive nature of war. And like the song has this pivotal kind of war god figure who basically rules with an iron fist of the land. So it's just a nasty, nasty track. I love this track. Like the riffs are razor sharp. It's just unrelenting. And yeah, it's a great song all the way through for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Jim?
Yeah, no, those heavy guitar riffs. And I like, and Ventor sings on this. That's one of the three songs that he's vocals on, this one and a couple of others. So you kind of there is a little bit of a difference there, definitely. But I mean, again, a massive drum sound. It's got a really cool solo in it, but it is again, like you guys said, kind of chaotic, and that's what I like about it. I think that's what like you were saying about the American thrash. It's a little bit more kind of organized where it's here it is here it's kind of laid out. This is a little bit more, you kind of don't know what direction it's going to go in, but yeah, this is definitely another massive song on the album. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, I just sort of I jotted down two points here. I think the first, just madness and energetic. come to mind. Like it gets even more intense as the song progresses, and the drumming, right? Like Ken, you said it, the
Yeah,
pummeling drums here. Like yeah, again, just another
it's massive.
relentless track. Yeah, and then just the raw vocals, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, it wouldn't have worked with clean singing with this music.
No,
Uh, yeah, no, another killer track. And so this will be a common theme of the night, I'm sure.
yeah.
So moving on to track number 4, Pleasure to Kill. Jim.
Yeah, it's got a wicked intro, and again, it's so heavy. This is one of my couple of like I have a few standout favorites. This is one of them. You know, I love the distorted kind of satanic voice that kind of sounds like a demon towards. I think it's towards the end of the track, but it
Yeah.
really suits it. This is, you know, the title. It's just awesome, and I mean, it just flows really good. Again, too, this is like Slayer meets Venom and they come out, they have a baby, and it's Kreator. That's how it feels like early Slayer, Venom, and you know, if they were to get together and produce something, you know, it's just it sounds so cool. I mean, and it's so heavy. And again, I mean, you know, you're heading to like almost the end of the first side of the album, and it's just getting seems like it's getting heavier and heavier as this album goes on.
Yeah, no, yeah, it definitely does, eh? Yeah, maybe I'll jump in on this one before Ken jumps in. So for me, this sort of kicks off what I think is like the run of the 3 best songs
Yeah.
on the album.
Yeah.
Right? They're just like classics. Um, Also, Pleasure to Kill. Like the songs ingrained in me from all the live shows I've seen with Kreator. This is usually sitting somewhere in the encore, of course, along with Flag of Hate from the first album, are
Mhm.
pretty much standards. But yeah, I mean, the Pleasure to Kill and then the audience shouting it back, always a good time. You know, the chorus is actually pretty memorable here, just because it's, you know, dare I say, sing along for this like crazy music. But you know, it's just a vicious guitar leads. They're fantastic. And really, like when I listen to this thing like really closely and the drums, you know, there's some really great drum fills on this track that stand out here. Not just aggressive drumming, but some interesting drumming here. You know, we're actually getting for the, you know, unlike the previous 2 songs, it slows down for a period, right? So, you know, it makes the heavier stuff like more impactful. I think that's pretty cool. Like, you know, Millie just sounds downright
Oh
evil
yeah.
this track. Uh, so yeah, I love it. Big fan. Ken, what are your thoughts?
Well, this is like a really dark and morbid song, first of all, and it leans into the macabre so much. What I think though is going on here is that, you know, like lyrically, we're as I was looking at the lyrics, it's basically this undead vampire creature who comes back from the grave and basically wants to kill. So the chorus is what I think makes the song work because the chorus reflects what this is about, the pleasure to kill. And it's basic, but it's nasty. Again, it's like a really nasty song. And I'm gonna read this quote to you guys because I got this off the internet and I thought it was funny. This is the quote. Pleasure to kill isn't just a song. It's a savage symphony that taps into our primal fears and fascination with the macabre. I thought, damn, you got it. You nailed it. Because every song is like that. But this
Hmm.
is a great song. And I can see what you're saying, Billy, about when you hear it live.
Yeah.
And like I don't know if it was meant to be like a sing along like a sing along during the
Yeah,
live
probably
shows.
not.
But what my note, but the one thing I wanted to bring up here is that all the songs are structured similarly. So they introduce a figure or an idea, and they use the chorus to emphasize what the song's about. And I've noticed it's a pattern in all the songs.
Yeah.
So I think he was very conscious of doing that when he was writing this. I mean, maybe that's a primitive way to write a song, but I don't know. For me, it's really effective, and you remember it. Like when I hear this album, if I'm just walking down the street and I'm thinking about music, Pleasure to Kill always comes to mind because it's like pleasure to kill. It's in your head. Like yeah, it's like it's such a
An
brilliant song.
earworm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You're one. Perfect. Exactly. You just don't forget it.
Yep.
No, exactly. And Ken, you're usually, pretty up to speed on this stuff. Like I was reading this older interview, and it appeared to be Millie who was saying this, but he's saying the whole concept for Pleasure to Kill and the album title
Yeah.
came from him watching a movie called
Yep.
Faces of Death.
Faces of Death. Yes.
Yeah, and
Yes.
there was a section where he was watching like, animals killing other animals. And and that triggered in his brain right away, pleasure to kill, watching the animals doing it.
Yeah.
And then that led to, the intentional approach to make like every track being about a different way to die, basically.
Yeah, that's funny because that movie came out in 1978. So for years
78.
it had this
Okay.
it had this kind of myth about it that, oh, they really did all these killings, and they like it's all live recording of people being murdered and showing animals and all kinds of gross stuff. But apparently it's not. It's just a mock documentary that sort of pawns itself off as being like this. I know a lot about this because when I was a teenager, I heard so much about it, like in Fangoria magazine. I had to see this. So it's funny that he actually decided to take that VHS tape and then turn it in. It's like basically say that all our songs on this album are inspired from that movie. It's a legend. It's not a great movie now, but when I saw it back then, I was blown away by it. But watching it now, it's like, oh yeah, this is kind of it's all right. It's funny, but yeah, that's a great point that you brought up of that he because I wasn't aware of that either. I didn't know that he that Faces of Death inspired him to write Pleasure to Kill. But it's interesting that you brought it up.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I've never seen it. Like I wouldn't have thought something coming out in 1978 would sort of spawn this like brutal album here, but who knows?
Well, it's like the VHS. It's like it's not legacy, but it's like it's a legendary, I should say, in the sense that like it had this large myth about it, like being one of those nasty, like one of the British video nasties. Like you can't watch this kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
So I think it had that reputation for years.
yeah. Yeah, and I think just these young guys just wanted to be as, gruesome as possible. Uh, to get that image out there starting, right? So,
Yeah.
all right, cool. So that brings us to the fifth track, Riot of Violence. Ken, why don't you start with this one?
Yeah, this song I like quite a bit. Like this is the first song that gets a little more melody into
Yeah,
it, so they kind of pull back a little bit here, and I like it because the song actually is a little bit on the catchy side for me.
yeah,
But I like this song actually quite a bit. So like again, it's painting this picture about society, about global collapse, about disease, and I think it's fun. It's cool. And the thing is, I like the chorus. Again, the chorus, what I think really brings it home, the whole kind of the riot of violence. But when he's singing it, I was like, what is he actually singing? Because it doesn't sound like riot of violence because he's so fast at spitting it out.
Yeah.
yeah. And
But
the accent.
yeah, and I think yeah, you're right. The accent has a great part of dealing with how you interpret what you're hearing. But yeah, it's a great song. For me, it's one song has a lot more melody, and I kind of like that you get a brief reproach, or you get a brief respite at this point before you move into the next several songs where it's just insane again.
Yeah, yeah. No, I know. I think that I think I pretty much had most of the same points here. Again, this is a better example of the songwriting that'll come with the future albums, where we do get a little bit more melody. It's a little bit. I had here the main riff. The main riffs are catchy as hell. There's I love the rhythmic change ups in the song. It just makes makes it more memorable, right?
Yeah.
The slowing
Yeah.
down for a period of time. I think I said it about the previous track. Again, just makes the faster parts even more impactful for sure.
Mhm.
And this is another like great live track, right? For the same reason. I mean, yeah, I've seen some pretty crazy, vicious mosh pits during Riot of Violence. It's a great song, and another one of those where Millie will shout "Riot of Violence" and everyone shouts it right back. So. Another well-suited
Very cool.
song, and again, just more like great guitar work, right? Some
Yeah.
killer on this one, but yeah, from my perspective, it's three in a row that are my absolute
Mhm.
favorites. Right? Pleasure to Kill, Riot of Violence, and the Pestilence.
That's
But
the one.
before we get to Pestilence, Jim, do you want to jump in on Riot of Violence?
Yeah, one of my favorites on the album. Again, yeah, this you're leaving side one, and it's just, I mean, this I love the chorus in it as well too, and the fast solo in it, the guitar solo is really good. I think this song probably structures a bit more than the previous songs, and it just creates that. And also, too, Ventnor's he's singing on this song. This is one of the ones he sings on, so that's kind of cool too. But I find it starts to take a little bit more of a more form rather than the first few tracks. But yeah, Pleasure to Kill, this and the next song are the best for me, the best songs on the album. But yeah, this is one of my number one.
Okay, so we're kind of the same on
Yeah.
that. That's cool.
Mhm.
So speaking of the next song, the Pestilence, and I find it interesting, like such a brutal album, and relative to the previous songs, this thing's clocking in at 7 minutes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's a pretty long track here. But Jim, do you want to run with this one?
Oh yeah, it's got more of a darker sound to it. I like that kind of the galloping drums and guitar. That heavy solo again. I mean, this like is three of my three favorite songs, very similar to you guys. And it's just I can't imagine this live because I mean these three songs definitely bring down the house and yeah, it's just so cool. I mean that galloping sound just gets that thrash sound right through your body, and I mean it's awesome. One of my 1As, 1Bs, 1Cs, but they could change throughout at any time. It's a wicked track.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, I agree, and I think the first thing I jotted down here was those galloping riffs as well. So
Yeah,
we're seeing that here, and just the drumming, just
yeah,
crushing it. Again, the guitar leads. This is just like a great like head banging song. I like the very end of it when it gets a little slower and doomy.
Mhm.
That's
yeah,
kind of a cool way to end the song, and a little bit more here, like the previous two. There's a little bit, tempo change within the song, so it's just not all rip your face off here. So, yeah, another great track. Ken, your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree with you guys. Like the riff will just like slap you in the face. I also think the opening riff is really cool because
Yeah.
it's a little bit slower, but then it basically sets up that chug right after, and it's
yeah.
like whoa, and then the engine revs up, and then you just go and you go and you go. There's a couple things that I wanted to point out though, is that I wonder if this song was actually inspired by the movie Shivers by David Cronenberg, because the lyrical content of the song is that it's about a parasitic force
Mhm.
that corrupts people's minds and gets them to like kill, murder, and do crazy things. And that's essentially what happens in the movie Shivers. So I thought that was kind of an interesting like horror film connection. I'm not sure if there is one, but that was my one kind of thought about it. Beyond that, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. But as a song, I would agree. This is like one of the strongest songs on the album. 7 minutes. It doesn't feel like 7 minutes.
No,
No.
yeah, exactly.
it just roars and it roars, and it's like, oh, this is great. And then when it stops, you're like, damn, that's it. Oh, no
Yeah.
more. Like, yeah, it's such a great song. I would agree with you guys. Like, it's basically one of the best of the three songs on the album.
Yeah, no, makes sense. Okay, cool. Track number 7. I'm not sure if I'm fully got this right. Carry on. And I mean, I'm gonna sort of disclaim up front. I was asking the guys how to pronounce this word, and it's not a word
Carrion.
I've used in a sentence
Yeah,
quite regularly.
carrion.
So, it's a bit of something we did off camera before we started. But Candy, you want to start on this one?
Yeah, now this is the whopper of the song for me. And I say that because lyrically, it's the nastiest thrash song I've probably heard lyrics wise. Like just take this for a second here. You know, the song sets up a dystopian society, but then you get references to medieval brutality, global conflict with death machines, the existence of Satan, death, zombies rising, and bombs dropping. Now that's a whopper. That's a lot of lyrics to like jam into a song. And for me, it's like, whoa, like I don't know what Millie was on. I don't know if like he had a pissed off day when they were writing it, but that is just one hell of a song. It's a whopper of a
Yeah.
song for me. I love this song.
Yeah. Jim?
Yeah, I mean, using carrion in a sentence, you know, watching a documentary about alligators. Alligators tend to like to eat rotting meat, so they kill something, they bring it down. They usually hide it in a pile of rocks or under a log, and as it starts to get ripe throughout the time, they feed from it, and that's where I knew it from the word. So, anyways, but yeah, ditto to what Ken said. I mean, my God, this thing's got some killer riff breaks in it,
Yeah.
and just awesome. It's got a really good groove to it for being an explosive song. I mean,
Yeah.
and the drum intro is really good. I love the drums on this. This whole album's really showcased drums for thrash, and I think that's cool. But yeah, no, this is another keeper for sure.
Yeah, no, I think you guys kind of hit on it. Another sort of blasting track here again. I think it has a really cool opening riff, and right when you think the vocals are going to kick in, you actually get like this guitar lead that kicks in instead.
Yeah,
Of the singing. So that's kind of cool. That's a little different. But again, just another blistering song, whether it be the rhythms, the relentless riffing and drumming, just all out intensity again. I don't think we need to say more on that.
yeah.
No.
So speaking of which, number 8, Command of the Blade. Jim, you want to go here?
Yeah, this has got a cool guitar intro, and this has it's probably got the most identifiable bass sound on the album. I think the song has got a really cool bass line to it. And when he yells die, I love it. Again, this is the third song that Ventnor sings on it. So a little factoid there. But no, it's a great song. I mean, you're heading towards the end of the album, and it is just not letting up. It keeps going, keeps going. So,
Yep. Ken?
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I love the song is great too. It just falls in the same lyrical pattern of the idea of this kind of nondescript metal warrior who basically is adept with his blade and just murders, slays, kills, and the whole song just falls through. But I think the chorus again. I like the chorus. I love for this album in particular. The chorus on all the songs seems to accentuate the idea of the song, so it works for me in a very. It's a simple maybe it's just a simple style the way they wanted to work it, but it works, and it's a really nasty song. And I also wanted to know that there's some like Slayer vibes in this. I found with
Oh
the
yeah.
riffs. I thought I started hearing like, is that Slayer? It just kind of
Yeah.
sounded a little bit Slayer in the second half of the song. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So I don't know how much these guys were following the American scene, if they were at all. But yeah, just one thing I wanted to point out. I was writing in my notes. A little bit of Slayer vibe going on here. But this is a great song too. You can't go wrong with this song at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine they would have been, right, listening to the American bands. I mean, Slayer had been out for a little bit here. They were already on, like their third album by this point.
Yeah,
that's right.
You would think.
But yeah, who knows? Yeah, I mean, I think you guys sort of hit it on that. There's not much more I need to say on this track. I'll just be repetitive. So then we close out with the final track, under the guillotine. Ken, what do you think?
Yeah, I like this song too. Lyrically, this is probably one of my favorite songs because it sort of talks about the idea of like being caught for a crime and then you're going to be taken to the executioner. And I love the fact that what I got out of the lyrics for me on the song is that the person who is being condemned to execution has this kind of pride, so they don't want to beg for mercy. And the song kind of points that out. So I think that's a fantastic way to end the album. I love that. I love that song a lot.
Cool. Yeah, no, I think it's another good track. Stylistically, I think, the way it's written is, it's sort of the first half's a little bit more straightforward. Like I think you kind of listen to it and say, yeah, it's a good song, but a little bit more of the same. But I find it really interesting. The second half really changes, right? There's some unexpected, sort of time changes and a few little surprises with the way the track plays out. So I think from a songwriting perspective, it's pretty cool. And once again, the guitar leads just shine again on this track. I mean, Millie does a great job here. But yeah, a good one. Jim, your thoughts?
Oh yeah, I mean, this is where it all the culmination of the whole album comes together. Here, at like you're finishing it off, and it's done in style. I mean, it's a really good, and I agree with what you guys are saying with the fact that the first part of the album's kind of a little bit more basic, and then things start to get a little bit more. I find if a little bit more technical as the album goes
Mm.
on. Maybe they planned it this way. Definitely the way they laid out the tracks, I think were really really good on this album. But yeah, this is an evil sounding song. Those heavy guitars, and I love it how it kind of just puts a bow on everything, a thrash metal bow on the whole album. It's that good. So finishes it off in style. Great song.
Cool. All right, so we got through those tracks pretty nicely. So yeah, so just in terms of final thoughts on the album, whether you want to rate it or anything you want to sort of talk about Kreator here. Ken, you want to kick us off?
Sure. So, like, if we're gonna rate it, I mean, let's be honest, we're all gonna give it a 10 out of 10. There's just no way any of us here are not gonna score a 10 out of 10. I'm sure that's gonna be the point. But regardless, yeah, this album is it to me. It's like I haven't heard it in a while. So when I was spinning it over the weekend, I was like, oh yeah, I love this. I love this album to death. It's like it's everything you'd want in a thrash metal album. It has intensity, it has speed, it just has this nasty. It's just a nasty album in a lot of ways. But yeah, it's like this is an achievement for Millie because although I don't mind endless pain, I there's parts of it I like, and there's parts of it I just find it a little on the boring side. Like it's interesting, but you can see after the step up from one album for the first album,
Yeah.
the second album, where they just improved upon the style
Yeah.
right away. They do it with panache. They do it with the riff. The riffing is intense, really. And you're right, Venter's a fantastic drummer, a good singer, and a fantastic drummer. So I mean, he had a good lineup with him for the first 2-3 albums. I mean, I know Venter eventually left the band, but I mean, his contributions to early Kreator have to be noted here. But this is a fantastic album.
Yeah. No, I think you could say like with Kreator albums, probably going, the first four or five, like the maturing, like from one album to the next, right? The
Yeah,
songwriting,
that's right.
the musicianship, like the production, like everything's like a big leap from one to the next, right? I mean, Pleasure to Kill is a big leap on Endless Pain, but then what's to come is going to be a
Yeah.
big leap from these first two. And I'm sure we'll get to it in our ranking. But Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, I think probably we're all gonna love it. I mean, and I think if you're an old school thrash fan, you'll have your membership card taken away if you say you don't like the album. But yeah, it's
Yep.
great. And one of the this and Endless Pain, like two of my favorite album covers, and
Yeah.
it remained one of my favorite Kreator albums for a while. Uh,
Mhm.
and I don't want to give away my ranking, which is to come, but I'll just say, like, I later learned to greatly appreciate the more refined sound of Kreator that was still to come. But I'll leave it there. Um, okay, so coming to the point of the podcast where we're gonna rank the albums. So I got 15 albums. I hope you guys got 15, right?
We do.
I've got the re-release for 2017, so it's really really cool. And
Yeah,
what's really cool about it is you get Pleasure to Kill on it, plus you get the EP for
yeah.
the EP they released right after it. So it's pretty neat, and they do it in a kind of a really cool book. It's pretty neat. Tons of liner notes, and it's remastered too. So
Yeah.
it's definitely worth the money to pick that up.
Yeah, they did a good job, right? They did all the old
Yeah,
albums in that same view, right?
yeah,
The only thing that bothered me,
yeah.
I don't even know if I have the no, I don't have, because I already have two versions of that on vinyl. But
Yeah,
the only thing I don't like, this is just the extreme aggression one, but I just don't like it when they write remastered, right? Like it
Oh yeah.
changes the
yeah,
album cover, right? But I agree, Jim, like all the
yeah,
extra stuff you get in here, like this extreme aggression one has like live in East Berlin, 1990.
nice.
So yeah, these reissues come with like a lot of cool extras, but I just don't like that they write like they're messing with the original cover.
Yeah, yeah,
But I'm being picky.
No, no, that's fine. I would agree with you.
yeah,
If you're a collector, and you're probably a purist, so you
yeah,
want it to be in the form that it came out originally, right?
Yeah, but I do appreciate the reissues because all the
yeah.
extras
Sure.
you get for
Well, you
sure.
get the extras, of course.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. So you got your list, Ken?
Yes, I do, sir.
Okay. Who wants to go first? You want to go first, Ken?
Sure, yeah, I'll start it off. So, number 15, of course, is going to be Endorama, which, it's an okay album. It's not really a thrash album. I don't know what to call it. Like, I don't know if it's like just straight metal.
It's a goth alt rock album, but
Yeah.
I'll
Okay,
just shut
yeah,
up
okay,
and
yeah,
let you
yeah.
go.
That's a good way of putting it. That's fair. I mean, yeah, I don't hate it. I'll listen to it
I
once
do.
in the blue moon, but I still appreciate the fact that they took the time to make it. But it's just not something I would say it's Kreator. Um, Number 14 is going to be Outcast, which is one album that I don't really like at all. I don't like the punk approach to the vocals. It's nothing on that album that's really memorable to me at all. I can't even tell you a song off it right now, to be honest with you. I just can't. At number 13, I'm putting Hate Uber Alice. Now, I know, Jim, you said you like this album. I like
I
this
love it.
album too, but there's parts of it where I don't know, it dipped for me at times. Like, I thought that the opening track was great. It started off like a really great Kreator song. Then it dips a little bit, and when you get to the last song, which I don't mind the Dying Planet song, it's just different. It's like you could see they were. I don't know what they were doing here, but parts of it I like, and then parts of it I'm sort of, I'm just so with. At number 12, I'm putting Cause for Conflict again, another album that I thought was kind of okay, but I just didn't like the approach to the kind of punky approach to the vocals. And I don't know, I guess Millie was experimenting. So it's obvious he was trying to do something different. And it is mid 90s. So I could see that happening. Number 11, I'm putting Renewal. Um, it's funny about this record because a lot of people complain, if you read comments, they hate the album cover. They can't stand it. I don't mind the cover. Yeah, you might have it there, Billy. I don't mind the cover, but I don't know. Something about it that I'm not necessarily liking. It's not really like a metal cover. I don't really know what's going on there. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's okay. But yeah, a lot of people complain about that they hate that album cover. They can't stand it.
I gotta admit, I'm not a big fan.
Well, okay,
Me
then there
neither.
you go. There you go. And I'm putting Endless Pain at number 10, and I know it's probably a bit blasphemy to do that because it's the first album that they put out, but I kind of like elements of it, but then parts of it bores me. I'm not as enamored with it as I am Pleasure to Kill. Number 9, I'm putting Phantom Antichrist, which is an album I did really like. I did enjoy. There was a lot of songs on the album that I still listen to like today. And then at number 8, I'm gonna go with Violent Revolution, which is the Return to Form album after Endorama. I like this album a lot, but the trouble with me is that the strongest song is Violent Revolution. It's catchy. It's the song I like the best. There's songs on it that are all right, but I still listen to it quite a bit. Then I'm gonna put Terrible Certainty at number 7, which is an album that's pretty strong. It's like I hadn't listened to it in a long, long time. So I was spinning that over the weekend, and I like that album quite a bit. Number 6, I'm putting Gods of Violence. Now this album really, really struck to me because I loved it. I just thought it was catchy. I love the songs. I thought it was a really good balance of like aggression, melody. It had it all, and I still play this album quite often because it's enjoyable. And then I'm going to go Extreme Aggression at number 5. Again, a classic thrash album. Needs no further introduction, really, when you think about it. And number 4, I'm putting Hordes of Chaos. Now, this is an album that I also find really catchy. It's just something about it, like the melody, the aggression, the songs. And I love Millie's vocal approach. He's just like, for some reason, he seemed to, like, he found himself again. I don't know. It's like, he's a really good vocalist, and he's actually really impassioned on this album, at least I think. So I love that album. And then my last 3, now we're getting into Enemy of God, which I rank high because, again, I love this album too. I love his vocals. I love the guitars. It's an album I play a lot. I still play it all the time because it's perfect for me. And number 2, I'm putting Pleasure to Kill. It should be number 1, but I'm having a hard time with my number 1, which is Coma of Souls. I like both these 2 albums equally. Coma of Souls I like a lot, but I mean maybe tomorrow I could change it and go Pleasure to Kill, then Coma of Souls. But that's my ranking.
All right, cool. Maybe I'll go and then you can go,
Sure.
Jim. Um, so my bottom 4 is what excuse me, I'm gonna call the experimental period, or AKA my worst nightmare, but that's a personal thing. But like I don't know, I mean, these albums just didn't work for me. I didn't like them. I'm sure other people may like them, but yeah, just not for me. So my number 15 is Endorama, and 14 is Outcast. Again, I think it's like goth, alt rock, a bit of industrial in there. I mean,
Yeah.
Millie's vocals are unrecognizable. I mean,
Yeah.
this stuff borders on rock music. There's just the core Kreator sound's just not there. Like this is not the band I discovered or that I grew up with through the 80s and the very early 90s. So again, the band has the right to sort of experiment. So that's cool. Then for me, 13 is Renewal. Number 12 is Cause of Conflict. Yeah, and again, Renewal, right? Like for me, this thing was like it was a shocker, right? There's 2 albums I remember rushing home and putting on. There's Metallica's Black Album, and there's Kreator's Renewal, and the 2 of them they just shocked me, right? It's just not what I expected and not what I wanted to hear. Like I like these 2 albums better than my 14 and 15. I think they're a little heavier. They're definitely heavier. Cause for Conflict is the heaviest of these 4. But yeah, just not my Kreator. But again, for folks who like it, that's great. So moving to number 11, I have Hate Uber Alice. So of course the latest album, and more of the same of the last couple, like
Mhm.
thrashy, but still very melodic, just good modern creator. But I do feel like it's a slight step down from the previous couple.
Yep.
So I kind of have it up here at 11. Like, a part of me feels that maybe it's time for Creator to do a little shift or something a little different with the next one, but let's not have it back to goth metal though. Uh, and number 10, Gods of Violence. So just a great thrash album. Again, like the later era, it's still melodic. This has really good production. This thing sounds great. I'm a big fan. Phantom Antichrist for me, number 9. Very thrashy. This and Hey Uber Alice, very melodic, but I like this one much better. Obviously, I've got it ranked higher here. Just lots of good hooks. It's catchy. Just a damn good Creator album. Number 8, Hordes of Chaos. Again, just another strong late era thrash band. Interesting for me on this one. This actually sounds like 80s Creator, but
Mhm.
with a more modern production. And yeah, I think you said this, Ken. Millie's singing is quite good
Yeah.
on this one. So I agree with you. And then Endless Pain, I've got here coming in at number 7. I don't know. Maybe I put this too high. But just the debut album, the album cover, has the great track "Flag of Hate," a staple of the live show, and it kind of started it all. So maybe nostalgia for me is pushing it higher than it should. But I agree with you, Ken. It doesn't belong anywhere near the top 5 or 6 in my
No.
opinion. Number 6 for me, Violent Revolution. And so I don't know if it's just like I think this is a good album, or is it just I was so happy to get the old Creator back that it's so high. But I'm pretty sure it's because it's a good album.
Yeah.
Uh, for me, this should have come after Coma of Souls.
Oh,
Uh,
yes, yes, yeah.
after the previous 4 albums, we're actually getting Millie's signature vocals back. So again, I think that's pretty cool, and it's kind of interesting that the album artwork kind of pays tribute to Coma of Souls, right? You've got that
Yeah.
same kind
Yep.
of logo, so kind of going backwards, right? So, and that's
Mhm.
what the music was doing, so that's cool. Enemy of God is my number 5. Um, Definitely the best of the later Creator material, just vicious thrash, no nonsense. There's less melody relative to the stuff that would come after this one. I mean, Creator's in fine form here. For me, Coma of Souls. I've got it number 4. Yeah, the top 4 are also good for me. Like it's really hard. My number 1 is hands down Slam Dunk. But these set number 2, 3, and 4 is tough for me. Just
Mhm.
again, a good lesson in thrash songwriting. We talked about it before. The band just continues to mature, and then I've said I'm a huge Sodom fan. So Creator, Sodom's Frank Blackfire is on guitar on this album. So his impact can't be understated there.
Mhm.
Number 4 for me, Terrible Certainty. Again, just a massive leap forward relative to the first two records. Just a pure thrash album. Gone is from the first 2 albums, the bordering on death and death music, and the raw aggression is it's still aggressive, but like that raw sound is gone. It's much more mature. Number 2, Pleasure to Kill. We already talked about that. And my number one, hands down, Extreme Aggression. Like
Oh,
I just
okay.
love this album. I mean, it has the best of the old, what was of the new. Like I still remember listening to this thing for the first time. The hooks, the catchy songwriting, everything came together, and it was interesting. This was a major label for Kreator at the time on Epic Records in North America. So that was, I think, pretty good. And that's why if you look at this album, I'm sure folks know, but the original album cover looked amazing. It was like a real, like violent type album cover.
Yeah.
And then I'm guessing it's because it was on Epic Records, that, I still have the record here, that we kind of get like a portrait.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Yeah. It's pretty lame.
right, compared to what should have been there. But
Yeah.
nevertheless, best Kreator album in my opinion.
Okay. Cool.
So Jim, over to you.
Yeah, mine kind of a conglomeration of both your lists, but number 15, Renewal. Breeze through these ones. Number 14, Outcast. 13, Endorama. And those could be intertwined. It doesn't really matter. Number 12, Cause for Conflict. Number 11, Violent Revolution. Number 10, Enemy of God. And I mean, that title track is amazing on that album. I love it. It's just placement. That could be higher. Number 9, Phantom Antichrist. Death to the World's a wicked, wicked track off that album. Absolutely love it. I go a little higher with Hate Uber Alice. I love that album. I think in 2022, that was my number 3 pick for my top albums. And I just love it. I love the title track and Midnight Sun, where they do the, they have the female singer on there as well. And the video is really cool with the chainsaws on bungee cords and stuff. It's really cool. It's got a really weird sound to it. And it didn't get a ton of love, but I really, really like it. Number 7, Endless Pain. Total Death is amazing on that song. Number 6, gotta go with Hordes of Chaos. It's one of my favorite thrash albums. I love it. War Curse on that is a wicked, wicked song.
Yeah.
And of course, the title track is cool, but that's a really, really good album. Kind of hard to get to. It's I don't think they've remastered or re-released that one, and it's because it's only 2009, but to try to get it, it's pretty expensive to get used or whatever. Number 5, Terrible Certainty. Toxic Trace is good off that. Great album. Number 4, Gods of Violence. 2017, a little bit higher, but I mean that Satan is Real on that is a great song, and Fallen Brothers is pretty cool on that too. Number 3, Homa of Souls. The Sun Burns Red. I mean, this is an awesome, awesome album. And it comes only behind Pleasure to Kill, which we just discussed in length. And I mean, my number 1, just like Billy, Extreme Aggression. This was the first Kreator album I bought. So I have a little bit of attachment there. And I remember, I knew about Pleasure to Kill, but I don't think I had that one. I went back and bought them. But yeah, this was just an amazing, amazing album. I absolutely love it. Some Pain Will Cast on it. A wicked, wicked track. And so there it is in a nutshell, the top 15.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, not drastically different.
No.
Or like, what's in our top 5s are similar, but different.
Yeah.
Speak, but all right, cool. So before we leave Kreator, just maybe do one quick sort of round table here on final thoughts on the band. Any last words? Jim, you want to go?
Yeah, just a cool factoid, Pleasure to Kill. Hey, Varg from Mayhem Burzum, after he killed Euronymous, changed out of his clothes in a car, and the only shirt in the back seat was this album cover shirt, so he wore that. So kind of an interesting factoid. No, I mean, I love Kreator, and I love the Teutonic Four. I mean, they're amazing, and like what you guys said, sometimes I like them a little bit better than maybe the big four from the US. for different reasons. I mean, it's just they seem to be gaining a lot of momentum, and they all seem to be putting out really, really good quality releases. So awesome. No, awesome all the way around.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, I kind of had similar thoughts. I mean, I think this band deserves a lot of respect. I mean, just a huge like career, and sure, I don't like a couple albums, but for the most part, these are all fantastic stuff. I mean, even if you just go like the last, I don't know, say last 20 years,
Yeah.
like these I mean, nobody's released of the US Big Four. I mean, nobody's released the amount of albums or albums that are as consistent as Kreator has. Or even the German Big Four, right?
Yeah.
Nobody has matched what they're doing. I mean, this is a thrash podcast, so from a thrash perspective, I mean, they're still remain like true to their roots. You can't say that like about some of the big US four, but and they're touring machines. I think I mentioned I saw them 3 times last year, and I wasn't even going out of my way. I mean, these guys are on like every tour. They don't mind opening for bands that I say, "Wow, why the hell are they opening for them?" But then you'll hear the show; they're awesome, and they'll be like, "Yeah, and we're coming back in 4 months on our own tour." They do all the festivals, and there's just no signs of slowing down, right? So again, just kudos to this band, right? I mean, when you've got Slayer have called it quits, although they're popping back up again, there's no sign of Kreator slowing down, and you'll also see, and to ensure that's the case, like I'll follow Millie like on Instagram, and like he's traveling the road, and it's the same thing with oh, his name escapes me. What is it? Schwimmer from Destruction. Like
Yeah,
they're
Yeah.
always taking pictures of themselves in the gym lifting weights. Like these guys are like taking it seriously, man. They're taking fitness and their health seriously to keep going. So I think that's pretty cool too. But yeah, Ken, any final thoughts on your side?
yeah. So Millie, I really respect Millie as a musician, because I think Kreator, we're looking at their history and the amount of all 15 albums that they've released. Yeah, there is a bit of diversity there. So I kind of sometimes I know there are thrash fans who get upset that they had this mid 90s drop, but I kind of again I'm going to go back to my thought that they used like yeah okay they did a lot of experimentation in that era of music because you had grunge, you had metal was or thrash was pretty much on the downside, but he used that time to experiment, and then some of that experimentation has now found its way back into the modern sound of Kreator, which is what I kind of like. So that's why in my rankings I got a lot of the modern stuff towards the front because I find it entertaining. Oh, well, entertaining, but I find it enjoyable, and I find myself going back to those albums for some reason more so because I think the modern production, the sound, the melody, the aggression, they've learned how to balance it. I do agree with you though, Billy, that the next album, please, you got to start changing it up a little bit because it's starting to after Hate Uber Alice. It's like, yeah, a great cover. I thought it was an awesome cover and some good songs, but they need to. I think he needs to vary it up a little bit, come up with a different idea. But I guess it's hard when you've been doing this for so many years to
Yeah.
like you've
Yeah.
how many riffs can a person play or like create? Like it's natural to happen. Like if you look at the new Judas Priest song that came out, like I see people saying, "Oh, I heard this song sounds like that song," and it's like, yeah, because after a while, you can only come up with so many unique riffs. But I do enjoy the riffs. I think Pleasure to Kill is one of those albums where it's just riff centric, riff mania. It's maniacal, really, when you think about it. But yeah, I do appreciate Kreator, and I think they're one of the more consistent thrash bands, and they still are, and that's important. Like I think you should care about your music. Don't end up becoming Metallica, where you're like these old geezers who just I don't know. I'm not too sure what the hell they're trying to achieve these days, but at least you won't get that from Kreator.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, well said. So yeah, I think this might bring us to the end of our first episode of the Thrashcast. I think all three of us want to thank everyone who's going to be tuning in and listening to us. And of course, thanks to my co-hosts today, Jim and Ken. We're going to alternate this, so you won't have to listen to me lead this thing every time. So that'll be cool. I think we got a great album coming up next, Sacred Reich, The American Way. And what, guys, keep me honest, what's that, 1990, I think?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, 1990. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Recorded
okay.
in 89, came out in 90.
Yeah.
Okay. It was a pretty big break for those guys then, right? Because
Oh, yeah.
Immigrants was like 87 maybe, or 88. So
Well, I think they did the EP beforehand, Surf
Surf
Nicaragua.
Nicaragua.
Remember
Surf
that was
Nicaragua.
kind of like that kind of was the prelude to what you got with The American Way.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, so yeah, another great album. And yeah, once again, thanks to everybody. Really appreciate folks taking the time to tune in, and we'll see you all next week.
Absolutely.